18 additional A-10 Warthogs just deployed to the Middle East. That brings the total to roughly 30, nearly a third of the remaining fleet. It is an aircraft the Air Force has spent a decade trying to phase out. Right now, more of them are heading into the war zone, not out of it. 5 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, over 150 Iranian vessels have been destroyed or disabled in the Strait of Hormuz. The F-35 gets the headlines. The B-2 gets the mystery. But in the Strait of Hormuz, the Air Force discovered a problem that billions in fifth-generation sensor technology cannot solve. Telling a fishing boat from an attack boat among 3,200 civilian vessels. The F-35 has a sensor suite worth more than the airplane it is replacing. It still cannot distinguish an IRGC paycap fast attack craft from a dhow at 500 knots. The A-10 pilot can, because at 300 knots through a bubble canopy, the human brain has time to see what no algorithm has been taught to distinguish. That is not a capability gap, it is a physics equation. And it's the reason the Pentagon cannot replace this aircraft. Picture the Strait of Hormuz from 3,000 feet. Below you, 3,200 civilian vessels. Dhows, container ships, fishing trawlers, ferries running between Bandar Abbas and Keshem Island. And somewhere among them, IRGC paycap fast attack craft. Engines off, tarpaulin pulled over the rocket rails, painted the same sun-bleached blue as every fishing boat around them. From high altitude on an infrared sensor, they are all identical thermal blobs. Warm engine, warm hull, warm water. The sensor sees contacts. It does not see context. The reason comes down to angular velocity. When an aircraft flies over a target, that target sweeps across the pilot's field of view at a rate physicists call angular velocity. The faster you fly, the faster targets move across your retina. The lower you fly, the faster still. What matters is not airspeed in absolute terms. It is how quickly the world scrolls past your eyes, and that rate determines whether a pilot has time to see what is below or whether the ground is just a blur. An F-35 crossing the Strait of Hormuz at 5,000 feet generates a high angular rate. Targets transit the pilot's field of view in a window too brief for the human eye to process contextual detail. So the pilot looks down at the electro-optical targeting system. That infrared sensor is designed to detect and track, and it does detect. It marks contacts on the display. But among 3,200 contacts that all look approximately the same on infrared, which one has rocket launchers under canvas? The sensor sees temperature. It does not see intent. An A-10C at 300 knots at 3,000 feet operates at about 40% lower angular rate. The pilot looks through a bubble canopy with near unobstructed visibility, and the pilot's brain runs a process that no sensor replicates. Scan the line of vessels. Contextualize. Is this boat anchored among civilians or holding a position offset from the shipping lane? Classify. Are those fishing nets or antenna arrays? Is that a fuel drum or a rocket rail under canvas? Decide. Does this contact meet the threshold for positive identification under the rules of engagement? That 4-step process, scan, contextualize, classify, decide, requires dwell time. And dwell time is exactly what speed takes away. In a theater where thousands of civilian vessels share the water with IRGC attack boats, and where misidentifying a single target means an international incident, dwell time is not a luxury, it is a legal and operational requirement. A security camera can see that someone entered the building. Only the guard at the door can see that the person is carrying a weapon under their coat. Detection is not identification. In the Strait of Hormuz, the A-10 is the guard at the door. F-35A at combat load does not loiter. It transits, strikes, and returns. Its stealth advantage degrades at the low altitudes where close air support happens. At $34,000 per flight hour, And at 500 knots, the angular velocity problem makes the pilot entirely dependent on sensors that cannot classify contacts and sea clutter. The F-35 was built for beyond visual range combat. It is the wrong tool for a mission defined by looking out the window. The MQ-9 Reaper can stay aloft for 14+ hours, but it has no armor and no redundancy, and a single 12.7mm round ends a $32 million airframe. MQ-9 Reapers have already been shot down by Houthi surface-to-air missiles in Yemen, a threat environment less dense than Hormuz. The operator sits in a ground station thousands of miles away, viewing the world through a sensor feed with over 1 second of satellite delay. The operator looks through a straw. The A-10 pilot looks through a windshield. The Collaborative Combat Aircraft program has 2 prototypes in flight test, but current AI visual recognition is brittle. It fails when targets are partially hidden or when the scene is crowded with similar-looking contacts. It runs pattern matching, not scan, contextualize, classify, decide. And when the pattern is a pay cap painted to look like a fishing boat, the pattern breaks. Initial operating capability is 2028 at the earliest. The gap is now. There is one candidate that almost works. The AT-6B Wolverine, a turboprop trainer converted for light attack at under $1,000 per flight hour. It flies at roughly 250 knots with a full visibility canopy, slow enough for the pilot's eyes to do exactly what the A-10 pilot's eyes do. But it carries only light armor. It cannot survive the 12.7mm guns and man-pads that line the Iranian coast, the right eyes and the wrong skin, which leaves the A-10C Thunderbolt II. 2.5 hours on station with external tanks, 1,200 pounds of titanium armor around the cockpit, dual engines with redundant flight controls that work even when the hydraulics fail, $20,000 per flight hour, and 300 knots through a bubble canopy, angular velocity low enough for the human brain to run the 4-step visual process. Not a single replacement passes all 4 requirements. The A-10 is the only aircraft in the inventory that does, and it is the one being retired. Here is the timeline. Congress held the line through September 2026, requiring a minimum of 103 aircraft. The transition plan for 2027 through 2029 has been submitted. F-35s provide high-altitude overwatch. CCA drones act as forward sensor nodes. MQ-9s maintain persistent surveillance. The gaps in any single platform are supposed to be covered by the network. And yet, in the first week of April 2026, the Air Force deployed 18 additional A-10 aircraft to the Middle East. The system of systems concept sounds elegant, but it has a physics flaw. Networking solves coverage, putting sensors in more places. Networking does not solve resolution. You can build a network of 1,000 cameras, but if every camera shoots at 144p, adding more cameras does not give you 4K. Resolution is a physics problem, not a bandwidth problem. The Air Force is not retiring the A-10 because something better exists. It is retiring the A-10 because the mission it was built for, low, slow, survivable, and cheap, does not fit the war the Air Force wants to prepare for. The problem is that the war it prepared for is not the war it is fighting. 30 A-10s, a third of the remaining fleet, surging into the theater that proved them indispensable. Not because doctrine says they should be there, because physics demands it. The gun will be mothballed, the titanium bathtub will go to a museum, but the physics of visual identification, angular velocity, dwell time, the limit of what any sensor can resolve in clutter, those do not retire. They are equations, and equations do not care about transition plans. When 70 fast boats hide among 3,000 fishing vessels, and the rules of engagement demand positive identification before the first shot, who looks out the window?